If you like growing food, then you might like eating food. And if you like eating food, then you might like cooking food. Well, go check out the first season of Backyard Kitchen, available on Tubi for free. Available on all smart TVs and online. That's TUBI, all free, first season of Backyard Kitchen. The calendar says that there's Earth Day once a year. But shouldn't every day be Earth Day? Shouldn't we be more sustainable in our gardens? Let's figure that out. Let's crack that egg open right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening. We are your hosts, Ben and Batavia, and you can find me gardening in the country.
And you'll find me gardening in the city. Get ready as we dig deep into this
wonderful world of gardening, where we learn to grow and grow for change. All right, so for all of my Canadian friends out there, and yes, we know you're out there and we hear you loud and clear, you can now watch Backyard Kitchen Season 1 on TELUS. 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 I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but I know that it is available on that channel or network in your country. So thank you very much. I saw you hovering the bell. And patron, if you'd like to be a patron, please hit the link below. It will help support the show, help us keep creating content for you, and you will get 2 extra episodes a month, up to, and some other benefits as well. So please check that out and join us as we take this gardening journey. Sustainability, Batavia. Sustainability.
Is it a buzzword, do you feel like, yet?
Yeah,
buzz phrase.
I'm going to look at my nails and how clean they are right now, because I just cleaned them, and just try and not think of the fact that you just pulled that out of my head. So that was the exact thing I was going to say right when you said it. I think it is.
I think we're still on the wave of organic gardening. I think that's still on the high. I think that sustainable gardening is coming right in under it.
Yeah.
You're a surfer, like the wave is behind us on that. It's coming up though.
It's the big wave that we got to catch, right? I mean, it's an interesting thought, and it's an interesting concept, and it's fascinating to think about. Are we already sustainable in our practices? That's my question. So amongst many other questions.
Oh, I like that, because you're already doing a thing, and there's always an opportunity to do more of it, to be better at it, if you will, right? Is that where you're headed? That's where my brain took me. Of course.
Well, and and the great words of a good friend of mine, look here, everybody, kind of like her. Oh, them, excuse me. If you're listening to the Backyard Gardens podcast, and you are already ahead of the curve, so there it is. No, I mean, our generations are not our generation, like me and you, but generations are different. Like the baby boomers grew up a certain way, and then our generation ushered in a sustainable wave for the future. You know what I mean? As when we were children, recycling became a thing and all this stuff. You want to know a fun fact about me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how far back I go. I'm world famous, by the way. So I think I was in 3rd or 4th grade. I don't know what it was, but we caught when there was a competition, and we had to write something in order for, to promote recycling. So we did a storyboard, and we came up with a rap, and I'm gonna recite it for everybody right now.
Oh no!
So it was, and we got on the news, and we made a commercial and everything, and we had to do like a whole day of filming. It was amazing, but it was all right, kids. Pre-cycle. It's very easy, and it's not that cheesy. All you have to do is buy things that have been recycled. So pre-cycle. Boom. That was like it, you know what I mean? You're talking about like 88, 89, something like that. And so my role, other than writing it, was to go cha-bomb, bomb, Chabom bomb, chabom bomb in the background.
Oh, I wish we would have video for this episode.
Oh,
mine.
I have the video. If I can get it digitized, I will post it and embarrass myself.
No, I mean just seeing you do the dance just then.
Yeah. But it was an interesting concept back then because everybody knew, recycling was just coming up in our town. And we knew that we had to recycle, but we didn't understand. And then we somehow figured out about, I think it was with the help of our audio visual teacher, pre-cycling, which now is very common. You don't even realize you do it. You know what I mean?
Pre-cycling is me rinsing out last
listen to my rap. It's buying
okay.
things that have been recycled.
Oh, okay.
At least in the 80s, that was, or the 90s, one of the two, that's what it was. So it's interesting to think about that. You know what I mean?
So I was going to try to fib there and turn that into something different than what I was going to say, but I'm going to go with I didn't listen to the rap.
Dude, I don't blame you. I wouldn't either.
No, so I it's the reason why I put sustainable gardening in the category of organic gardening. It feels like there should be just this straightforward definition, but I literally came across it. I was looking to a couple of things like there's no official definition, right? There's no technical definition of it, and this is one of those weird things that, and weird in a positive way, that means different things to different people.
Yeah.
But definitely there's an opportunity to get on a high horse about this, among other things. But I did, and I'm going to have to shout out the website. I just like this definition if I can find it.
Before
I'll
you
share
give
it with
a definition,
y'all.
I think that during this series, we need to come up with our own definition and give it.
Okay.
If there's no official definition, then why can't we make an official definition?
We can do anything we want.
You damn right. That's what we're going to do.
Leonard, can we do anything we want? Okay. No, seriously.
Get your scribe ready, Leonard. Here we go.
So it's about practices and methods, right? To do no harm, right? To help the environment, but also to not harm the environment, right? I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I'm a person, I've mentioned this before, I cook meals from the living room, so I'm notorious for turning a pot on and then walking away. And I do this with the sink as well, so I was running some water for something in the sink in the kitchen, and I walked away, and I don't know, maybe it was in advance of these episodes as we've prepped for them. I thought to myself, here I am trying to, rig up a rain barrel, trying to conserve water. I'm concerned around, the overhead sprinkling. Am I just wasting so much water? And I just have water running down, my drain, as I walk away.
Yeah.
And I don't think, you have to be 100% in all of that. Like, okay, sure, I left the water running. Maybe I'm taking a longer shower. I still think it's worthwhile to take other steps and measures, right? To do your part, if you will. But it's funny how we can be sticklers about a thing in one environment. I don't know, the last time you worked in an office, like there was the one person that was like, who put this glass jar in the regular trash and not the recycle bin, and you wonder kind of what they do at home. Are they really following it to the letter?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And this is not a space where I'm going to go ahead and just say we're not here to open up a space for people to be militant about sustainable gardening. That's not our goal. There are going to be some practices that I do that you don't do and vice versa. And that's okay, because if if you've been listening for any amount of time, I'm sure that you realize that we are among the practices of like a little bit counts, do what you can do. And there becomes a point, it's like I saw somebody putting in a rain collection irrigation system, and they did this, cost them thousands of dollars, and then they got a drought and they couldn't use it.
Oh, wow.
And then they got rain and they went to go turn it on and it didn't work. And it's like, okay, so you know what I mean? Like, you're kind of back and forth about it, and it's a tough road to go down. But I think there's little minimal things that we can do to make a bigger impact than one big, massive project like that.
Yeah, and using the term loosely, I think these are just healthy practices that we'll talk about, right? It depends on, I consume a lot of content, and some of the content, depending on, the time of day, time of year, mood I'm in, I'll get through a number of videos and articles around kind of the concept of self-sustaining, living areas, so you have not necessarily off grid, but you have these folks that are living in a community, let's say, and they have oftentimes referred to different systems they've put in place. Right. So it's a water retrieval or, that's a system they've put in place. Right. Your bees in that hive, that could be a system. And I think that there isn't an end all to be all, whatever that means, right? It isn't going to be you fail or succeed based on one system. I think that there's some level of redundancy. There is that doing a little bit. There is, what's the term you use when you are supplementing your food bill? Like all of that thing, when I talk about like just doing a bit of it, all of that matters. When it comes to, it's okay if I take a 20-minute shower versus a 10-minute shower versus a 5-minute shower, right? Like, again, we're not going to be militant about it. We're not going to worry about, the water that came out of the drain. I'm not going to bring my plants in the tub with me, to water them as I'm that's not, I don't need to do that thing. So I guess these are more kind of disclaimers as we open up this series for me, kind of what it's not versus what it will be.
Well, I don't shower, first of all, because I'm so concerned about saving water. So there's that. Mm. So we're going to do a meet and greet. Anybody want to hang out? No, seriously though. I want to say one thing. I was thinking about this while you were talking. Gardening is
versus listening to what I was saying.
Well, you do the same to me. So how do you think this show rolls? I have to think and talk and listen at the same time. No, seriously, gardening is a sustainable practice in itself.
Yep.
No matter what you do, you're already part of the solution. That's my true belief. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It's, you're cutting out fossil fuels. You're cutting out overwatering, pesticides. The list can go on, but you're minimizing
it, which goes back to the point of a little bit can go a long way.
No, go ahead.
For the peppers that you're growing, sure, right? I could go there and say, where did you originally buy the seeds from, right? Where did you originally get those from, right? So there is some
footprint there. I
there.
hate it when people do that too, when they start nitpicking you. Like, oh yeah, I don't eat meat. Oh, you don't? Well, do you eat cheese? Because that's a form of meat. I'm like, oh my gosh, people. So
again, finishing my thought, and I could go there, but I'm not, right? So I'm going to focus on you are minimizing the amount of food that you need to drive somewhere and purchase. Of course, you can bike there. I get it. But you need to drive somewhere and purchase, not to mention what it took to get that food into that place. But unless, again, you're only eating off of your land, you're not eliminating it. You're minimizing your contribution to it.
Right. Yeah, unless you are, like you said, fully self-reliant. There's another buzzword coming soon. Self-reliance, then yes, you will have some kind of footprint, and that's okay. Now, I know somebody who's got electric cars. They do solar panels. They do the whole shebang. And it's very expensive, but they have very minimal footprint. So there's that. Either way, go ahead.
The key is it's no different than you and I talk about with our gardens. You don't have to start where we are. You don't have to have, 10 8x4 garden beds like Ben has to be a gardener, right? You could do more than that.
Yeah.
Or you can do less than that. It's all a contribution, right? So you don't have to be completely self-reliant to practice sustainable gardening. Like that's not, it's, what's the word? They're not mutually exclusive. Like it doesn't have to be that way. And thank goodness it doesn't have to, because it takes a lot for that to occur.
Yeah.
And, a lot of us just aren't ready for that yet. if ever.
Well, yeah. And I think that the time is coming, and a lot of people in this country are actually seeing where a sustainable gardening practice would be very useful and helpful. So, you know, you will start to see more and more of that. Hopefully it will ease, but, you know, in comes the apocalyptic talks of droughts and stuff like that. So, but look, let's do this. Let's go to this break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to lay out the format and the criteria, and then we're going to continue this conversation because I'm learning a lot about the way Miss Batavia is thinking about this, and I think she's learning a lot too.
Speak for yourself. No, I joke.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya.
We want everybody to have a garden, and we're going to give you a chance to win free seeds every month.
Head over to backyardgardenstv.com and enter your email address to be entered in all of our giveaways.
Good luck. All right, so as we get into this, let's talk about the criteria for each of the episodes. Ooh, that sounded weird. The criteria for each of them. So we're going to be talking, everything that we discussed was going to revolve around watering, pollinators, plant selection, fossil fuels, and then like special tips for each one. So we do reserve the right to change that as needed, just disclaimer. But that is the plan so far, is to kind of moving forward to go through that. And when we thought about that, we took a couple of lists and that we found, and we just really dwindled down to what we felt really mattered. Right. Yeah,
we want this to be consumable, digestible. We want to kind of remove maybe some of the stigma, around what you should and shouldn't be doing. We want to demystify it, while neither of us are subject matter experts on this subject, I do believe that we have something to offer to this conversation. And I think that's a part of what it should continue to be, is a conversation, right?
Yeah, it should always be a conversation, but there needs to be action behind the conversation too in order to propel forward.
Good for you. I'm with you. I get it.
You know what I mean? It's like we've gone through so much in the past few years. Like, we're living in that age where there needs to be an action. Mm-hmm. We can talk a lot, and talk, but you got to walk the walk, baby. And, how many people do you think have a rain barrel?
I'd say 5% of people.
Well, how much of our audience do you think has a rain barrel? Because it's a loaded question.
If it's possible for this episode for me to finish a thought, then we'd be on to something. So let me give you the preamble so you'll know I have more to say about it. So I'm going to answer this with people in general, and then I was going to answer based on gardeners. So rough numbers, which I'm always terrible about. What did I say?
5%.
5% of the world, which probably even sounds high saying it. And then maybe 10 to 15% of gardeners.
You think so?
Yeah, and based on that, I'm going to say the number for all people is probably even lower.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I would hope that the gardener number would be higher. I know, what year was it? It was in 2008. My state had a bad drought, and one of the main reservoirs in the middle of the state completely dried. I mean, you're talking about this lake. It's giant, and we used to go swimming in there all the time and stuff, and you could go walk all the way out into the middle of it, and it was like a little puddle left. And you couldn't go in the store. Like, when you went to a restaurant, they wouldn't give you a glass of water anymore. You couldn't get ice.
This is in North Carolina?
Yeah, this is in North Carolina. You couldn't water your plants at all. People were taking showers with their plants, and you had to put a bucket in. Nobody was enforcing it, but you were supposed to put a bucket to catch the extra water. There was massive savings going on. And the problem was, it was too little too late. The savings need to start before the problem. But what happened at the same time as there was a big push for rain barrels, and all of a sudden everybody had a rain barrel. The state was just giving them out to people. You know what I mean? At the same time, a friend of mine's land had, this is how bad it was. A friend of mine's land had a water reservoir on it, his uncle. And the state came up to him one day and they knocked on the door. And he answered the door and he's like, yeah, can I help you? He's like, yeah, we want to buy your land. There was nothing on this land. He didn't even know there was a water reservoir on it. And they were like, yeah, there's a water reservoir under it. We're going to give you $15 million for this 3 acres. And he's like, sold, thank you, bye. So, you know, that's how bad it was that they needed the water and access to it. And at that time, I didn't realize the benefit of a rain barrel. I didn't realize that it filled up in like 0.2 seconds of a rain. You know what I mean? Like one downpour and you filled it up. And I think it opened a lot of eyes. So I think as these droughts come up in these areas, I think we start to see more and more people utilizing it. But I tend to think that it's probably people that grow plants that would utilize it more. You know what I mean? Like if you don't grow anything, what's the point in having a rain barrel?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. I was thinking to myself,
you weren't listening?
Well, we're going to figure it out because if I wasn't, I don't know the answer. But I was thinking to myself, if we really realize how much water, you know, there are a bunch of fast facts out there, but how much water we use. Yeah. Right. You know, so when you said the rain barrel, like how long does it really take you to use that one fill up, if you will? I am notorious for leaving like, you know, containers. Like I have a bunch of containers. We know this, right? A lot of them I grow things in, so they have drainage holes, right? But some of them I actually leave undrilled because I use them for other things. And sometimes those containers sit outside when there's a rain. And I'm always mesmerized by how quickly one of those things, not being filled up, but you could get a good look at how much water is coming down at a particular time, right? Then I think about, as I sit and water my plants, how much water is coming out of that hose or whatever, however many times I went back with my pitcher, you know, and I wonder, now you wonder why people have multiple rain barrels, you know? So if you're watering your garden, go back to that, with it, like, you could probably use that water pretty quickly, you know, even if it's raining regularly, you know. So are you supplementing your irrigation with rainwater, or are you watering your garden space exclusively with rainwater?
Yeah. So I water all of my pots with my rain barrel. And then certain stuff in the beds and emergencies. But it'll take me, in the middle of summer, it takes me a month to drain a 55-gallon rain barrel. And that's just with watering my pots only. So anything extra, and it just like that, you know what I mean? It'll go fast. So then, and you're right, you know, how many rain barrels do you need? Now, the problem I have a big container. I haven't even hooked it up yet. It's probably, I don't know, 1,000 gallons. But I haven't hooked up, and I'm sure we're going to get an email now, a way to pressurize it so I can run a sprinkler off of it. So let's take that for instance, and let's say I do pressurize it and run a sprinkler off of it. Do you think, knowing that I have a finite amount of water in that container, that I would be more conscious of how much water was coming out of it and how I was using it via the sprinkler because I could see it? Or do you think, you know what I mean? Or does it even matter? It's like,
I think that you're more, let's say you've committed to using only water collected in your rain barrel, right? And I think you'd be much more conscious of it.
Yeah.
I think that if you were using it like through a sprinkler, you'd have other buckets to catch water that didn't quite make it to the plants and so on. I think because it's a finite resource now as you're looking at it.
Right.
Right. You see this barrel, you have an idea of the maximum amount of water that it can contain versus, you know, there's just this hose in this pipe. That, you know, and again, we're keeping it really real, right? You know, so versus this thing that appears to be unlimited, you know, nothing creates change like going without.
Yeah.
You know, so I've never been through a drought, and my guess is if I had, some of those practices, some of those things would stick with me. Maybe not all of them, because at some point I'm sure you begrudge needing to shower with all of your plants. But at some point those habits are habits, and I continue with them. That's, I guess my gut. I mean, we have a lot of people in California in particular.
Yeah.
So I know that that's a struggle in different parts of California.
Yeah, California, all through the Southwest. Is that the Southwest? Yeah, we're going to say Southwest. If you're living in a bad drought, the bad drought, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so ever since 2008, I have thought about it differently, because it was so, I mean, I remember, dude, it was so hot, and it just didn't rain. Never rained. And then last year, we didn't get any rain for the month of May, not one drop. And it was like, I was like, okay, we're getting kind of close here. It's getting kind of tough. All my rain barrels were empty, everything, and it was like, okay. And that's just like, I mean, and I know we're talking a lot about the rain barrel and the watering aspect, but this is a very visual item that we can talk about for this one. You know what I mean? So
I had some garden friends over, and sometimes I'm specific about friends versus garden friends, and sometimes I'm not, but these are really good people. And it had rained like for a very short period, but very hard. And I mistakenly had a pot of starts out in a plastic tub that didn't have any holes in it. And so, it's the dumping of the water, but it had been raining so much here. And so the water that was in the container, and this is like it's not for gardening. It's just something I brought outside when I was bringing my starts out. So it's one of those really long ones. And it was kind of this dingy, dirty water. And I'm just like, oh, these poor things. They've just been, it's actually a container that's mostly of dead plants that I want to make sure that I show on Instagram to show that I don't keep everything alive. And so I was dumping it out. And as I was dumping it out, one of the ladies said, "You don't reuse the water?" Right? Again, second nature for her. And I said, most times I do, but everything is so saturated.
Yeah.
Like at this point, I'm just adding more water to soak the thing, and I could be doing damage. At least that was the process in my mind. There also was probably the process of this icky water, which the reality is it's just dark because it's dirt that's washed out of it too. But I think small things like that, small nudges like that, I think are healthy. And unless you are kind of here in this space in your life, you don't think twice about it. I was clearing out a jug of something, and I have some water sitting in a gallon jug on the counter now. And I said, oh, you know what? I know I have some houseplants that need some water. It's clear water. There's, no sediments or anything that's sitting in it from it sitting there. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'm pretty sure I didn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's as simple with like the exact thing is you dump it out. Do you dump it and let's say let's make it even easier. You have an old bottle of water in your car and you dump it out. Do you dump it out in the driveway or you dump it out in the grass?
Well, I don't have grass, but for your example, the grass. Yeah,
that's sustainable right there. You're being more sustainable right there, and you're environmentally friendly at that point. So it's, and it's like with you, it's the same thing. Like, where did you dump that water?
In the rocks that are along my fence line.
Okay. It's still getting used for something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm growing weeds there, surely.
Well, the idea is you're not contributing to runoff. Okay, that's a big issue too, because we have so many concrete and streets and stuff like that, and the drains, and it just runs off. The earth doesn't get to use it and pull it back down, so then it can send it back up.
Oh, that's an excellent point. I love the way that you. Yeah, I love the way that you put that together. I forgive you for all of the cutting me off earlier in the episode. It was all worth it to get to that point.
You've been cutting me off too, so just so you know.
Oh no, I live for it.
I know you do.
But both just because this is what one of my best girlfriends said, you missed out on your cussing. Like you missed the opportunity to cuss them out about it. So don't be mad. I'm taking my opportunity.
But that's the whole point. So like if you ever go to a like a shopping mall or something, you're starting to see this more. They have impervious parking, which is just like it looks like concrete lattice on the ground, and then in the middle it's just like dirt or whatever. And so it's like it's a parking lot, but then it has that because it cuts down on that. So you're starting to see more and more changes happen.
I don't think I've seen that.
It's not as common, but it's starting to become more. I mean, I don't think people are ripping up parking lots, but as things get built and stuff like that, you'll see more and more of it. I know I've seen quite a few now, but that's just kind of adds to that where you have less of this runoff and you get the, you know, because the whole thing is, and if you don't know, I give you a brief lesson. It's the water cycle. It gets hot, it evaporates, comes out of the earth, makes clouds, gets cold, it rains. And that's the part of it. So maybe we're making it worse with all of this. So as a gardener, you can make it better. And like you're in particular though, because you have to garden, your garden's on concrete, right? So you have more, you're affected more than I am because I'm on like just earth. Yeah. So you can be affected by that more so and have more of an impact. Now, do you make, the question becomes, so what if you dump your water in the driveway? What does it matter? It's just a bottle of water.
See, my opinion on that is the 4 ounces you left in the jar. And again, we are intentionally not focusing on, you know, the bottle that you have because, you know, it could be plastic. We're not going down there. That's not where we are. That's not what this is about. Right. You know, so you have this 4 ounces that are left. Sure, I could say, well, it's only 4 ounces of water. It's not like I'm going to really completely water my lawn with it. You know, I look at it as it's more of this repeated behavior, right? It's becoming ingrained. This is completely off subject, but it's on the top of my mind. And kind of hold your horses because there is, you know, the potential of tragedy around it. So long and short, I was talking to a neighbor, and we were talking about how much traffic comes down our street. You know, like it's a two-way street, so many cars. And we started talking about safe driving. And my grandmother told me years ago, probably in my early 20s, you'll never forgive yourself if you hit someone's child. So this was the, you know, young person driving, don't be reckless, be cautious, you know, you want to make sure that you're paying attention. And it's never left me. I had an accident where I was turning left, they were turning right. We basically collided. And I am forever cautious when I go into intersections because of that. That was 20 plus years ago. I share those two stories because they're things, it's just human behavior, right? You know, there's psychology around, like we continue to do these things and it creates this habit. If I'm less likely to pour 4 ounces of water on the concrete, I'm less likely to waste a gallon of water. You know, if I'm more likely to pour that, you know, 4 ounces into my garden bed, into my bird bath, which there's a whole story there, or on my grass, just plainly on my grass, that I'm more likely to take those steps, whether it's inside or outside. You know, I don't want to say practice makes perfect because I don't think there's perfection in many things and definitely not in gardening. But I do believe that they're positive steps.
Yeah.
Long answer there. Thank you for giving me that time.
It was a long answer. But if you think about it, though, I mean, my argument is, yeah, it does matter if you do it. Because what's the next guy doing, and the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy? I mean, there's 7 billion people with a B on this planet. Imagine if we all dumped 4 ounces of water on the ground and walked away. If we all threw a bottle out and walked away. But then you start saying there's a handful of people, and they do it every day. They don't do it. It adds up. It adds up a lot, you know. It's exponential growth is what it is. And if you don't know what that means it starts, I mean, we all know what exponential is because we lived through the pandemic, but it just goes and then boom, it shoots up real fast and it's just compounding, doubles every so often. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
If you put 4 ounces of water in your grass versus your driveway, David's going to see you do that.
Yep.
And at some point, he's going to naturally do that.
I'm doing the math real quick because now I'm curious.
That's just the way it works. I do want to kind of just cover off just briefly on a couple of other topics, but I'll tell the story about the bird bath while you're looking that up. So I have had a bird bath for like 4 or 5 years in the front yard, and I have never seen a bird take a drink. I have normally seen the stray cats, the feral cats, and today I saw for the first time, which I'm sure it's not the first time there, a squirrel, of course, hop up, sit, take a drink, was only scared off when a car came roaring down the street. And so I'm going to be satisfied with knowing that while the intent was to have some beautiful bird come in, go ahead and flap around, clean themselves up, maybe take a slurp. Instead, I'm just letting other creatures drink.
Well,
maybe they won't eat my tomatoes because they're satisfying their thirst. The squirrels, that is.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, you're also providing a water source for your pollinators from your garden to go cool off and drink.
The asterisk there is, a friend told me this, and I haven't done it yet, but put something like a rock or a stone in there because some insects aren't as smart. They can't figure out how to get themselves out once they've gotten in there. So I'll give them a place to kind of perch down.
That is true. That is a big thing for pollinators is to put some kind of rock, something elevated.
I've seen bees suffer from that most often in my space.
So the National Wildlife Foundation, this is pretty cool. You can get them to certify your garden for to be a refuge for nature, and in my opinion, that basically makes you a much more sustainable garden. It's like, if not make you want it's a step in the right direction because they have certain things that you have to do. It's fairly cheap, and you can actually get a plaque put in your yard for it if you would like. I'm going to click on it and see if I can get them. So you have to do a certain number of these things. You have to have food, so native plants for food eaten by a variety of wildlife. You have to have those, available. Water, so you need to have a bird bath or something like that. Cover, you need to have a place for shelter for them to get from bad weather, for birds and bugs and stuff like that. You need to give them a place to raise young, and then sustainable practices. So they define it as maintain your yard or garden in natural ways to ensure soil, air, and water stay healthy and clean. So, and then if you dig deeper into the certification process, it'll actually walk you through how to do that. And when I did it originally, I'm not certified. I could be. The only thing that I really needed to do, and I don't even really need to do that because of the way my property sits, but all I needed to do was put a bird bath on it. And I could be a certified, National Wildlife Foundation garden, or yard, whatever. So it's really important that you do that because there's key things in what I just said that's going to propel us moving forward to the sustainable practice and sustainable gardening. So that's just an option for you, and it's a place where you can go. That's the National Wildlife Foundation. And if you just look up Certify My Yard, National Wildlife, or NWF, you'll get the website. And it's cool to see. It's cool to see what they consider and what you would, what you and I would do or something like that. Gives you an option, but
I was looking back.
Because it costed money.
I was looking back. I thought I remember that they're not my neighbors, but I claim everyone.
You do.
It's a few miles from my home, and how I go past their house. I've not met them before, but I go past their house, and they basically change over the season. Have their front yard and side yard completely decked out, all kinds of attractions. Flowers and pots and water sculptures and all. And so I thought that maybe they had that certification, but I looked back because I have a picture of it, and it's actually pollinator garden is the sign, where I assume that they've gone through some criteria to qualify as a pollinator garden. So different from what you described, but also a very positive step in a direction that, many of us want to head in.
Yeah. I mean, and it does that mean that if you don't do it, that you're not a good gardener? No, of course not.
No, you're not a good gardener. No, I know. I'm just joking.
Yeah, I never got a bird bath. Shoot me. Now, is that going to change? It might, but damn. I mean, whatever. You know what I mean? I got everything else under the sun going on over here, so what? I don't have a bird bath.
Why don't you have a bird bath?
Because I didn't want to spend the money on the damn bird bath. I didn't want to maintain it. I didn't want to fill it up.
So that is a a really, really, really important factor. So at the onset, you talked about, kind of all of the person that has the electric cars and has the solar systems and all of that. Like, there is definitely a path, like many of the things we talk about, where this can get to a point of being expensive. Even the small steps, So the first year I had a bird bath out, someone suggested that I leave it out because, water needs to be consumed by many of these creatures in the winter as well. And so I said, oh, yeah, I definitely could do that. And it didn't occur to me, though, the bird bath I had, the bowl was glass. So sure enough, at some point it cracks. And so I'm like, well, shit, So anyway, I ended up getting one that isn't glass the next year. But the reality is now I've already spent the cost. There's two expenses there for a bird bath, right? Again, the extra expense was based on negligence. But I say that to say, save yourself the $20 or $30, like I get it, right? There are other things that you're doing to contribute. And I think that's the attitude that we should keep, the energy we should keep when it comes to this.
Well, I mean, the one thing is like, okay, I could buy the $30, $40 bird bath, whatever it was, or I could keep spending the money to build rain barrels like I had been and doing the other practices moving forward. Because my property has water, like there's water right behind it. So the birds, I mean, they don't even come to my bird feeders because there's plenty of food in the woods. But you put them out.
I mean, I don't think it has to be either or. I just don't think it has to be all.
Yeah.
I think that you figure out what works best for you. It didn't occur to me until recently that I could really find a space for a rain barrel just based on like the layout of my home and where the gutters are. Like, there are a couple of spaces I can put them, but it's like, am I able to walk past this? Basically, I can't use this as a walkway anymore. Is it that important to me? In this moment, it isn't, right? But I have found a space, I think, that will be out of the way enough, accessible enough, not blocking any walkways, not creating any danger when it comes to being able to navigate the yard or anything like that. But it took me some time to think about that, to think that, one, it was even an option, two, that I assume it's not as difficult as my mind had it to set up, and then three, that it actually will be a space that makes sense for my property.
Yeah, because you're working with a tight space in some instances. So
yeah, I mean, most of the rain barrels are going to be the size of the walkway that I have on either side of the house, and they're the way the gutters are set up without the expense of like having gutters put into a different space. They are kind of tucked away, right? But there are two spaces that I can see that would be easily accessible. I'm going to try one of them this year. I'm sure learn some things, and then potentially move some things around in the front yard to add one there. But I need to get maybe even 1 or 2 years using the single one under my belt before I go reconfiguring things. I'm just being honest about that.
Yeah. I was looking at the certification things. It's I got to the prices. It's $20 to $119. It's a hell of a spread.
Yeah, it surely is.
But you get a free magazine subscription. Mm-hmm. Does that help?
Pay the $25 for the bird bath. Keep on moving. No,
yeah. No, you know what? That's a good point. Just keep on keeping on. So, and then we have to talk about benefits of this too, because I think there's hidden benefits, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reason why I thought benefits was important to include here when we talked about it, I think you suggested it maybe, is we're more inclined, to be quite frank, to do things that we feel like benefit us. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to things like organic gardening and sustainable gardening, and kind of my initial reaction to it is it's for the rest, right? It benefits something that's bigger and larger than me. And while that's true, I also believe that, we're incentivized to do a thing if we feel like we can actually personally benefit from it. So yeah, that's my spiel.
It's a cost savings, is the way I look at it. I mean, either way you look at it, put a rain barrel in. You don't have to pay as much on your water bill. You know, don't turn your heat as high. You save money on your power bill. You know, don't make compost. You don't have to buy bags of dirt and bags of compost, you know, or bags of fertilizer for that matter, really. You know, grow your own vegetables, you know, especially now with the way prices are, you know, start seeds. All these things, you know, they all make a difference. So, and each one of them has its own benefit. I mean, other than like cost savings, what else can you think of? And if you say it'll make you in a good mood, I'm going to throw up in my shoes.
It'll bring you garden joy. I mean, I do believe that it gives you more immediate access to the things that you may need, right? You know, so instead of having to and not necessarily just like the travel or the oil or, you know, the gas that it takes to get to the space, it saves you the time. It's kind of like, you know, you're working on a project, you want to have all of your tools there right in front of you versus having to run around. Lord knows if I could ever actually live that way. You know, so if I don't need to go to the store to finish this project and get compost and instead I have it, that's a benefit, you know. I think that there's generally some satisfaction in knowing that what you need, you're supplying.
Yeah.
So that's one. Is that too fruitful for you? I'm looking at your face here.
No. My nose has been itching like bad, but no, not at all. I think it's funny. You said walking around looking for tools. I did a project the other day, and by the time I got everything together, my watch said I had walked a mile. It's terrible, you know, but that's part of it too. So
I sit on in the spring. Again, I'm not as spry quite yet, you know, and I use my milk crate much more often.
Yeah.
So sitting on my milk crate is the equivalent of sitting on the couch and then forgetting something and having to get up. And so the amount of times that I've sat on my milk crate, it's like, I forgot the mallet. Oh, dear goodness. You know? Yeah. So now I'm looking around to see if there's something else that I can do while I'm sitting here before I have to get up. Or the number of times I was talking about when I talk about neighbors, I'm talking about different neighbors, just so you know. I'm not like holding someone hostage in their yard, talking to them all the time. Well, maybe I am, but anyway, not all of them. It's we were talking over the fence, and I'm like, what did I walk back here for? I know I just didn't walk back here for the glove. I would have never walked back here for a singular thing. Right. If I made the trip to the backyard, it's going to be for two things. And I just said, you know what? After we finished talking, I'm just going to assume it was just the glove and keep moving. I never figured out what it was, but that's okay. But no, in all seriousness, you know, the benefit of having access to things, the benefit of, you know, our time is a precious resource.
It is.
Right. You know, so being able to save in time, I think it's kind of underestimated, you know. I do believe that, and it's along the happy lines, I believe it helps us remain sharp and creative, you know, needing to figure out kind of maybe what's not the beaten path, what's not the most traditional way to do a thing. I mean, it taps into, you know, your creative juices. Yeah. And your resourcefulness.
But then it gives you a sense of pride when you're all done with it too.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like I go back to that National Wildlife thing, and there's a sustainability section, and it says, do you employ at least 2 practices? So one of them is soil and water conservation. So the example they give is, do you limit water use? Do you compost? Do you mulch? Do you reduce lawn and pavement? Or do you use soaker hoses? Or do you install a rain garden? So, I mean, just think about that right there. Like, how many people compost? How many people use mulch? You know what I mean? That's all that stuff counts. You know, soaker hoses, that stuff, you know. Now, using the sprinkler, okay, I get it. I got it, but still, I'm standing firm on that one. But then if you keep moving down from it, and then it's like, do you control exotic species? So do you plant native plants? There is a huge push right now for native plants to be planted in, and at least in our country. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world. I'm imagining it's about the same way. And when you go look at native plants, though, it's interesting. There's some really pretty native plants. And then it's also interesting of how many plants are not native that you've seen your whole life. It's crazy.
How crazy is it?
It's crazy. It's cray. So
yeah, I mean, I think that this, I'm going to say it, it's cliche, sustainability, it's an attitude,
it is, though. It's not a stupid
right?
thing. It sounds stupid, but when you, after 40 minutes of talking about it, it is an attitude. It's a thought process. The cynical
parts of both of us are like, come on, but it doesn't mean that it can't be true, and that can't be the feeling that we get from it, because it ends up, unknowingly it's influencing other things you're doing. Again, the way that you're moving. If you go away from the garden, and, a more practical piece of, are you turning lights off when you leave a room?
Yeah.
Are you turning your water off when you're not using it versus, how if you have the hose connected, you can leave the nozzle on. Things like, so now this piece, and we may not have room for it in this series, but I'm just going to say it now. Overdoing is the only way I can think of describing it. Are you overwatering? Right? Are you have you figured that piece out yet? Do you have your sprinklers on or your water system on after a heavy rain? I used to actually follow a gardener who, and a part of the way I try to garden kind of aligns with this. The steps we take, the practices we have in our garden that require additional resources, like trying to limit that when necessary.
Yeah.
Right? So we can have all these additives put into our garden areas, and maybe they are absolutely necessary for longer term success, but don't we want to be more sure about that? Yeah. Versus, again, creating this routine, in some cases, if I simply put it, maybe depleting our soil, or even having, your annual garden expenses increase because you're buying these things, so that's in part the reason why, beyond the laziness, that's in part the reason why I'm like, do I absolutely need to do this thing? Can I be successful without doing it? Like, I tried, and it, even when I realized that mulch could help, it was not, maybe not as long as other things, but I wanted to see if I could get away with not, but one thing feeds into another. You better believe I was watering my garden more.
So the other day, as my son would say, the other day ago, I put a video out about how I plant tomato plants. Mm-hmm. And there's a part where I was like, hey, now I'm going to add mulch. And we had just had like an inch and a half of rain, like a day or two before maybe. And I was like, look, I haven't mulched this one yet because I'm waiting for it to grow. And I was like, look how dry this is already. Mm-hmm. And I was like, now watch this. And I walked over to the bed right across the path that had mulch in it. And I moved it. And I was like, now look at this. And it was all still nice and wet, and it held its moisture. They get the same amount of sun. Actually, the one that was had more water gets more sun than the one that didn't. So, that being said, it was really a testament. You can believe when I was filming it, and I was like, let's go see what the other one was. I was like, please don't be dry. Please don't be dry. Because I wasn't sure. I had never really looked at it that way, but it made such a big difference, and it's baby steps. This is a subject that I am passionate about because, like I said in the top of the show, I was on TV because I wrote a rap about recycling when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like, that was the thing. I remember telling my mom, like, you have to recycle. We have to do it. It's not an option. And God bless her, she did it. And she recycles everything, and always has since then. So it was just always something that was just really rang true. And it's so easy for us to do. Yeah. Just like it's going to be super easy for Batavia to give us the recipe of the day.
That was abrupt. Bring it!
If you guys want some Backyard Gardens gear,
go to the link below and check out our t-shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and other gear.
All purchases go towards helping to support the show, so thank you so much in advance, and we hope you enjoy.
We want you to be a part of our gardening community. DM us a picture of your garden at Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram, and we will share it with our listeners. All right. Simple and easy. Radish and Parmesan salad. I know. We're fans of the radish, and this is probably a more traditional way to eat it, but doesn't make it not any, it's still good. All right. So we're going to take maybe a prettier radish, a radish that has some color, which is the one that you grew last year. The watermelon radish. I know. Yeah. I know how you felt about it. Yeah.
The Chinese red meat radish.
Yeah. So our ingredients include whatever kind of a light green lettuce of your choice, something that doesn't have a lot of flavor. I wouldn't use arugula here. So any type of like romaine or light leafy green lettuce. We're going to take your radishes, shaved Parmesan cheese, or kind of the sprinkles of it. Simple as simple does. You're going to take some olive oil in a bowl, a couple of tablespoons, combine it with maybe it's 2 to 1, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. We're going to add some salt and pepper to our taste. We're going to whisk that thing up. We're going to add these leafy greens that are starting to die out in our garden, so we want to make sure we use them. We're going to add these thinly sliced radishes fresh, and then we're going to add the Parmesan cheese. It gives it a bit of a different bite. You got a radish and Parmesan salad. That's it.
Good.
That's all.
Simple.
I'm eating light, man. I got to get ready for all of the margaritas I'm going to have midsummer. So,
I hear you. Simple and light, though. I like it.
Mm-hmm. And it's warm enough to not want a bowl of chili all the time, but still cool enough to have salad greens growing in your garden.
That's a sweet spot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're coming to the end of that quick. I harvested a whole head of lettuce the other day, and it was a little bit bitter. You could taste it switching. So,
I 2 things. One, I had some spinach that I just hadn't. This is back last month. I hadn't planted out, and they were still only a couple of true leaves. But one of them in the block I could see that it started to flower. I'm like, come on, it's the hot, cold. And then also, I'll know by the time this airs, I have a bed that I had some romaine lettuce and radishes in last year. And I have volunteers, but I don't know which it is or if it's both. So I'm just letting the thing do its thing. So if it's lettuce, I'm going to have, based on what I've actually started and planted plus this, I'm going to be seasoning my coffee, coffee, sugar, cream, lettuce. I have to figure out a way to consume more of it. But I do think it's a good opportunity to do some things like, let me again have all these your favorite baby leaves, try a few things out for the little cost of basically nothing, right?
The low cost, one-time
that
fee.
actually is. Are we going to give a tip each for this before we close out?
Sure.
And I'm going to go first just because I don't want you to take my idea.
Okay.
And I don't want to have to come up with a really good idea if your idea is really, really good. I'm just going to give you what I got. It just occurred to me, but it's absolutely a key tool kind of in your gardening kit. Let things self-sow. Let the seeds drop. Yeah. It absolutely doesn't speak to my style of gardening, but there's absolutely something to be said about it.
You're style.
You're not spending any time or energy. You're not spending really truly any resources. No seed starting mix, for this space that, things are self-sowing. There is absolutely, especially if it's not food, but instead, if it's perennial, there's that, so now you're going to have this repeated growth. But if it's, annual, you still get the benefit of enjoying whatever that is. If it's flowers, you're saving in monies, which there is a whole connection to sustainable gardening that, is cost effective. So yeah, that's going to be it. Let some things self-sow.
Yeah, I was going to say next time it rains, leave your wheelbarrow sitting normal. Don't flip it over. Just sitting up and let it catch the rain and reuse it. It's just another added rain collection way that we employ in our house, and then we take it and we pour it into our watering cans.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Use it fast, though. Don't let it sit too long after it's rained. But yeah, it's a great idea.
We'll take it afterwards and put it in buckets and just stick it around the corner. We'll do stuff like that. But I mean, for sure, you do something like that. I mean, if you already have and if you don't have a rain barrel, get a rain barrel. I mean, there's that. So I'm actually moving mine. I'm getting ready to hook up my big collection system, which I don't know how it's going to work. But I'm going to move my existing rain barrel and daisy chain it to another one. So I'll do a video about that. Then at the same time, you'll see how I have it connected to the regular house. But I'm going to daisy chain it. And if you don't know what that means when one fills up, it's going to be connected and it'll automatically fill up the next one. So instead of having 55 gallons, I'll have 110 gallons at this one spot. So,
all right.
Yeah. And then I'm also going to hide it. So there's that too. I'm going to blend it into the whole area. So we shall see how it works out. But yeah, so we're going to do that. But that's all. Like every year I try and make one more step into the sustainable process, albeit small or big, it doesn't matter.
That's a huge goal though. Huge meaning like it's really smart. It's a smart goal.
I did last year was starting all my own seeds. And then my personal goal was not to buy a single bottle of water. And I met that goal.
Oh, good for you.
So, yeah. Buy yourself a water bottle and reuse it. Reuse. But that's it. And if you don't, that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, if you like simple recipes, though, I know a good place for you guys to get simple recipes. You can go onto Tubi and check out the first season of Backyard Kitchen. Or if you're in Canada, you can go into TELUS and you can look up Backyard Kitchen Season 1 and enjoy those simple recipes. Patreon, link below. And we actually sell water bottles on our page. So go to the link below. It's on Teespring. And you can buy a water bottle and you can start your sustainable journey today whilst helping support the podcast.
Do it now.
And other than that, tell the good people something wonderful.
See you next week.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please follow us on YouTube at Backyard Gardens TV,
Instagram at Backyard Gardens TV, over on our website, backyardgardenstv.com, and then we have Patreon at Backyard Gardens.
And don't forget to check out our links below to help the show. Thank you so much for joining us as we learn to grow and grow for change. Cut.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya!
If you guys want some Backyard Gardens gear,
go to the link below and check out our t-shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and other gear.
All purchases go towards helping to support the show, so thank you so much in advance, and we hope you enjoy. We want everybody to have a garden, and we're going to give you a chance to win free seeds every month.
Head over to backyardgardenstv.com and enter your email address to be entered in all of our giveaways.
Good luck!
We want you to be a part of our gardening community. DM us a picture of your garden at Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram, and we will share it with our listeners.